The images of war, the graphic images of war, are having an impact on public opinion the world over. This Tuesday, more than 400 U.S. civil servants, including political appointees, have sent a letter to U.S. President Joe Biden protesting his support for Israel. They say the New York Times saying this reflects growing internal dissent over the administration's support of Israel's military campaign in Gaza. For more, let's cross now to Georges Malbrunot, senior correspondent for French daily newspaper Le Figaro. You have a front-page story this Tuesday in your broadsheet about dissent within the ranks here in France among the diplomatic corps. First off, your reaction before we delve into what's going on here in France, your reaction to the fact that the civil service in the U.S. is now starting to waver. Georges Malbrunot, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, I didn't hear your question.
The question was your reaction to the fact that over in the U.S., the civil service is starting to waver with this letter that's been sent to Joe Biden.
I noticed that this morning, and I was not surprised. But I noticed quite a big difference between the situation in France and in US. In US, I've read that Anthony Blinken said to the diplomats who were behind this dissent note, "We are going to listen to you." In France, the answer I got yesterday from the Élysée and from the Quai d'Orsay is not at all this kind of ability to listen. They told me that they don't want President Macron receives a lot of notes, and it's one among others, and situation has changed, etc. So
yeah, because just to be clear here, one is a public letter sent to Joe Biden, and the other is a diplomatic cable. We haven't seen, you've seen it, but I haven't, the diplomatic cable. And that diplomatic cable thus is by working ambassadors, working diplomats.
Exactly. We have around 10 or 12 current French ambassadors, mostly in the Middle East, but probably one or two in Maghreb, which sent collectively, who wrote and sent collectively a diplomatic cable, kind of dissent note to the Quai d'Orsay, the French Foreign Ministry, and the Élysée, regretting that the French position is not well understood now in the region, that the image of France has been degraded, and the credibility of the French policy also has been damaged, because of the recent position taken by Emmanuel Macron in the war between Hamas and Israel. It's the first time in the last 30 or 40 years that this kind of initiative, collective initiative taken by a group of around 10 ambassadors in function is taking place. This is the first time. So it's a serious warning, meaning that the French policy, there is some disagreement. In fact, there is big disagreement. You probably know that the Quai d'Orsay has been marginalized by the Élysée for the definition and implementation of the French foreign policy. And what I've heard from people in the Quai d'Orsay, many diplomats are supporting this dissent report because they feel that the current French policy towards the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a little bit biased and towards Israel, and they want Macron to come back to a more traditional line, which is a line of more balanced position, as it was of course, during Jacques Chirac and even after with Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande.
Okay, so do they feel as though the balance is being redressed, what with Emmanuel Macron hosting that humanitarian conference last Thursday, and then the interview with the BBC, where for the first time he explicitly called for that ceasefire?
Yes, true. They told me that they noticed that especially the last interview to the BBC is probably a signal, according to them, that Emmanuel Macron understood the seriousness of the situation, and they were happy about that. We have to understand that since the beginning there was warning. There were warnings from from many countries in the Middle East, from many French ambassadors in the Middle East, saying that the position of France is, as I told you, is not well understood, and mainly there was this French idea made by Emmanuel Macron during his trip to Israel. You remember probably when he said, "I want to create an extension of the international coalition against Daesh to Hamas." Everybody was extremely surprised.
So let me ask you about that, Georges, because he quickly backpedaled on that. Are they angry because he kind of shot from the hip, or are they angry because they weren't consulted?
No. First of all, the Quai d'Orsay was not at all associated with this idea, and even I am probably sure the diplomatic cell, the diplomatic team around Emmanuel Macron was not really associated, because this idea was not at all fit to be implemented. Even Benjamin Netanyahu didn't want this idea to be implemented. Of course, the Arab states neither. When Emmanuel Macron came just a few hours after launching this idea to Amman in Jordan, King Abdullah was extremely surprised. I had Ayman Safadi a few hours before the trip, the Jordanian foreign minister, who told me it's unbelievable, this kind of idea. So there was this first idea, which the French ambassador in the Middle East were extremely surprised by this idea. So the French position...
Okay, but he backpedaled on that. But is the bigger problem not, for instance, when there was the strike on the hospital, when the hospital was hit, and there were protests throughout the Arab world, we saw in places like Tunis that the protests didn't happen in front of the U.S. embassy, they happened in front of the French embassy. Is it more that, the France being tarred with the same brush as the U.S., as Germany, in their support of Israel?
Exactly. One ambassador, the French ambassador in Middle East, told me that France now is associated with UK and US as part of the genocide, according to the press. Some French ambassadors have problems now to get access to the authorities where they are. And even there is one ambassador who got some death threat. So it's a reason why there is a kind of dissatisfaction. Strongly, we will see.
Will there be consequences from this diplomatic cable?
I think it's huge consequences, but in terms of short-run consequence, I don't think that Emmanuel Macron will change his path, even though he got the message. I am sure he got the message. But as you know, he has a way of to conduct the French foreign policy a little bit strange. We always, as we say in French, en même temps, always in the same time. But at least these 10 or 12 ambassadors wanted to send a signal that the situation is serious and the French position is damaged because of this, kind of U-turn of the French foreign policy, and the signal has been sent. We'll see if there is.
We'll see what happens. Georges Malbrunot, there's a woman in the middle in all of this, and that's the foreign minister. In the past, French foreign ministers, some of them have had outsized stature. We've had former prime ministers like Alain Juppé and Laurent Fabius who've had the foreign ministry portfolio. Catherine Colonna, where does she lie? Is she considered by the diplomats as one of theirs? She's after all worked at the foreign ministry before, or is she considered as working for what the French call le château, the Élysée Palace in this one?
The Catherine Colonna is a very well-respected diplomat, career diplomat who knows very well the diplomacy. The problem, say, she has been marginalized by the Élysée and mainly by also the diplomatic team of Emmanuel Macron. And she has not a lot of power regarding the implementation of the French foreign policies. That's very clear, and it's known by many, of course, diplomats and even by many journalists. So the situation is that the top of the French power has gathered all the power, and the French foreign ministry has been weakened for years and years, and now we have an evidence that the situation is quite serious.
Georges Malbrunot, one quick final question for you, because your remit is covering the Middle East, covering the Gulf states, and when you see that the pressure is growing, when there's domestic pressure on Israel's allies, like you've just described here in France, like we described at the outset in the United States. Right now, how long can the military campaign, politically speaking, can Israel ignore that?
No, I don't think they can ignore that, and we've seen the last statement of Joe Biden saying that he believes that there will be an agreement concerning the hostages. Probably there will be a kind of pause or in the strikes, and Israel has now a limited time to try to achieve its military and political goals. But I do that they will succeed by eradicating, as they said at the beginning, Hamas. We'll see.
Senior correspondent for Le Figaro, Georges Malbrunot, many thanks for being with us here on France 24. Stay with us, there's much more to come, more news, plus the day's business and sports.